Hi. Okay, so let's just start with the session. Let me share the screen. Today we are going to talk about, probably this is the last topic out of all, is administration and security. Okay, so when you are handling, so these topics concern you because this is, I mean, there are various kinds of problems associated with the, administration. How do you administer MongoDB, and how do you secure it? And so we'll discuss these things in detail today. And looks like Bhagwat, Sakti, and Umang have not been able to complete assignment yet. Samta, have you been able to set up your cluster? You were trying to set up your cluster, right? Yesterday? Okay, okay, okay. So you were able to set up replica sets, but you were not able to connect amongst those. Okay, okay. Then what I'll do is I'll just okay, okay. So yeah. So probably after today's session, it will be far more clear to you what I was saying yesterday. Okay, okay. So a little recap. This question a couple of people asked me, and I also faced. Like in case of MongoDB, is reduce function run against singular values? Singular as in the value for the when your function is being executed against a single value, not an array of values. So let's take a case of this particular problem. Okay. In this case, we have got map which emits these values, and then we have got reduce. So there are two keys, key 1 and key 2. Key 1 has got two values while key 2 is single value. Okay. So if you have got a reduce function which just returns reduced, so will it make the value of key 1 reduced and key, key 2 also reduced, or will it be like this? Which one would it be, do you think? Okay, anybody else? Okay, so Bhagavat knows the answer. So basically, when we have map is emitting values, while reduce will get key and array of values. For a key, value 1 comma value 2, value 1 comma value 2 will be given to the reduce function. What about the second one where key 2 is there? So will reduce function be executed at all, or will a singular value will be considered just another value first? Okay, okay. So Bhagavad knows the answer because we discussed about it yesterday. No, it will be yeah. Why do you say that, Bhagavad? Oh, value true. Right, right, yeah, right. Will be value true. Mm, key to value true. Yeah. So there was basically this is a conceptual difference. Conceptual difference. Uh, with respect to MongoDB itself, and I don't agree that MongoDB is right. As per current implementation, it is the first one, okay, this one, meaning that your function will not get called for for the things which are singular values. Okay, for this function is not going to get called, so it will be printed as is. This is how it happens as of today. Okay, so which is a very weird thing because this doesn't happen this way in case of Hadoop. So their implementation is a little bit different from what it is in case of Hadoop. Okay. So basically, if you are when you're writing your my reasoning is that my reduce function should be called irrespective of how many values are there, whether there are one or there are many. Okay. And that is why I do not like MongoDB way of doing it, meaning it doesn't call reduce in case the values are singular. The other thing is that say I'm processing values. Okay, so it should be up to me. It should be up to me that whether what do I want to do with a single value. Okay, whether I want to leave it as is or do not leave it as is. So in case I'm processing values, okay, say I'm processing making a square root sum of square roots. Okay, now reducer is not going to get called on the values where it's single, and then I will end up writing another function. So I will write a finalize which will take values and then do the square root. Now problem is that reducer will have to inform that the I have been applied on these values. You don't have to run a finalize on top of it. So then you'll have to make tweaks such that your finalize function can identify whether reducer has been run on a value or not. Okay. So those kind of problems occur. So that is the reason I don't like MongoDB way of doing it. Okay. So basically this is the right answer, which I don't like. Okay. Anyway, I've written to them also. I was also under the impression that it gets executed all the time. So I've written to them. If they don't do it, I will fix that. Okay. Now, when we talk about administration of MongoDB, first of all, let's talk about the operational strategies. Operational strategies comprise of various kinds of things, such as backup. How do you back up your systems? And then monitoring. Okay. In case of production environment, if something goes wrong, or in case of your when you are testing your cluster, you should be able to monitor, as in how do how are your servers performing and all. And then you have got runtime configuration. How do you configure your systems for various kinds of scenarios? And then most of the time you will have to do import and export. Okay. Uh, import and export. And then we have production nodes. Okay. Production nodes as in we have what are the various kinds of practices followed in production. So let's talk about backup. Backup can be done in three mechanisms. First is simple copy files, second is mongodb, and third is using their MMS agent. So the objective of a backup is to take the data, whatever is there, and make a copy of it and keep it safe, and should be done frequently. So it is quite simple to say that just copy the data folder of your MongoDB and you have your data. The problem that occurs with this kind of scenario is, say some data is being written to database A and then parallelly in database B and database C. Now when that happens, so you started copying, and copying takes time. So you started copying from one file and then second file, and by the time you are writing second file, the first file had changed, and so on. So you will end up with a little bit inconsistent data with respect to a time. That is why a point in time snapshots of file systems are a better way to do. Amazon EC2 and couple of more file systems. Amazon's EBS, it's called something for Amazon EBS or on EC2 provides you this point in time snapshot of file system. Similarly, Linux LVM provides you that. So point in time snapshot means that all of the files in a folder or on all of the files on a volume gets uh, backed up at the same point of time. Okay. So the data remains consistent. The other aspect is, since when you are copying from copying data from one folder to another, there are high chances that journaling is required. Okay. So s- because there's a chances of having the inconsistent data in a folder, if you enable journaling, if you remember the when you are taking the inputs from the user, the data keeps on getting into a journal before getting written into the disk. Okay, so if you are if you are taking backup from one folder to another, uh, then if you and you have enabled journaling, so the writes which are not there in one file would be there in journaling, and you can restore it accordingly. I'll tell you soon. So basically, you can while taking backup, you can say uh, take uplog also. Okay, okay, and journaling basically enables you to do a fail safe uh, against the power problems. Say you gave rights to MongoDB and then power went off or MongoDB shut down suddenly. In that case, the data has been written quickly to journal, and then after the power comes back or you turn on the MongoDB again, it will read journal and then update your actual database. Okay. So if you are taking backup and you have a journal enabled, so the operations which are going to get written in journal uh, are available to you because you have a quick way. But this is not fail proof. This is just a one step towards a better backup. Okay. So, and similarly, when you are using the when you are backing up a cluster, so while you are backing up the cluster, since it's not point in time, the only way you have is to disable the balancer during backup, and that causes a lot of headache. Okay. So if you stop or pause the balancer for some time during backup, so what will it do is that it will not move the chunks from one location to another location. And if you are able to take point in time backup of each individual replicas, then you are good to go. Okay. So these are the few notes regarding the backup. Okay. Although you can back up your database folder, which is good enough, but it becomes a little difficult. Also, since when you copying all the files from a folder to another folder, and specifically if the data is large, there is a lag between a file getting copied and another file getting copied. They are copied at different point of time, and when you are trying to restore, MongoDB is going to think that they have been they belong to the same time period, same time, same point in time. Okay. So a good way, another way of backing up files, if your writes are not very fast, is to use basically rsync. So how many of you know rsync? Quick, 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 quick. Okay, Bhagavad doesn't. Sakti, okay. Umang and Samta. Do you guys know rsync? Okay, okay. So this is a very cool tool. I think it got released. It's the same guy who wrote Samba server. Okay. He wrote as a PhD work is rsync. So if you have got a lot of say say a very big database somewhere, and every day there is only a slight amount of change, right? Only a few bytes out there, and you want to just take a backup of it every day. So instead of transmitting the whole file, you know, whole file, it will just transmit, it will just transmit those small pieces of chunk. Okay. Or you can think of, you have a lot of pictures in one folder and you take a backup of this into another one. Okay. So, and you have not maintained a record of what was copied or what was backed up or what was not backed up. Okay. So and you have also made enhancements to pictures and photos in one folder, and you want to keep on taking its backup every day, right? In those cases, you just do rsync folder A to folder B with minus avz, and all it does is dif quickly does a difference between these two folders. Okay, quickly does the difference between between these two folders and only transfers the data related to the changes. Okay, that is the beauty of rsync. So basically, no, Dropbox is not based on rsync. Dropbox maintains a record. Rsync doesn't maintain a record that this has been copied or this is not being copied. Yeah. So only diff will get copied. So the power of rsync is that even if you have not kept a record or the system has not kept a record of when was the what are the things backed up, or I mean there are two different folders altogether, right? And it you can just say that synchronize this folder with that folder. Okay, and these two, if they are on the remote files, then also it works well. And I use it very frequently, specifically when I have to copy a larger file such as movies over the network. And it automatically detects that, oh, these are the songs which already were there and you don't have to worry about these. Okay. So this comes up very neatly. Okay, and this guy, the author of rsync actually wrote it for his wife, for I think copying songs only, and that became his PhD, uh, you know, thesis. So, and it has become a de facto in almost all the tools. Okay, when you have when you don't have luxury of too much of bandwidth, and you have to synchronize one folder structure with another one which is remote, and you don't have a record of, you're not maintaining a record of it. Okay, so your question, Bhagwat, is based on part of what happens if the folder view had more files. Yeah, so you can also tell there are zillions of options in rsync where you can also say, hey, delete the files in the target folder if they don't exist in the source, and all that sort of things. Okay, and the important aspect is that uh, if there is a huge file, there are huge file, say 80 GB. Okay, there is a huge file of 80 GB in the source, which you took a backup yesterday. Okay, which you took a backup yesterday, and now when you are trying to synchronize today, there are only 100 MB, while the total file size is say 80 GB. But your daily changes are around say 100 MB or 50 MB. It will and this is a single binary file. It will still transfer only 100 MB every day. It will figure out over the wire what all changes have gone there in that file, and only transfer the changes. I mean, it does a binary diff. So it's a very beautiful thing, and it's actually worth knowing its algorithm. Those people who are interested in more computer science or more computing, they can look at rsync's algorithm, and it is actually a sort of a breakthrough for lots of people. Or everywhere, wherever people want to synchronize files or folders, people go for rsync, and people have started using it, in personal use. It got public in 2002 or 2004, somewhere down the line, or maybe later, 2005, I think. Okay. So rsync is such utility which makes you help you synchronize files over the wire and only transfer the changes. Okay. Only transfers the changes. And it works over SSH, and it has its own network, I mean, protocol also. So if you have SSH enabled on your servers, then you don't need any other thing. Okay. And also, it keeps helps you keep a rolling backup, meaning that say today you took a backup, we kept it in A folder. Tomorrow we are going to take a backup, and we just want to keep the deltas somewhere. Okay, and this way you are only keeping the diff. You're only keeping the diff. You are only backing up the diff, and at a later point of time, if you want to, join all the diff together and build it, it is possible. Okay. Okay. So in case of DBs, Sakti, the problem is that in case of this is not rsync is not a feature of DB. It's an independent. When you have to back up DB, it's a simple game because DB has a record of transactions. But when you are backing up totally unrelated files, or synchronizing totally unrelated files, in those cases, it's quite useful. So rsync, you must give it a try. I'm sure you will find it useful in lots of use cases. Okay. So how do people generally back up things is using rsync in today's time. Okay. And so the quicker way of doing things is that so I was telling that while backing up, since the data is being written in MongoDB, there are inconsistencies. And while other way, what people do is that they stop the writes. Okay, they stops the write for some time in this replica set. Okay, which is going to hurt a lot. Okay, okay. So you can stop the writes using while you're taking backup. But that's not a great idea because what will happen is you might end up, because your backup is going to take some time, you might end up losing a lot of writes. Okay. So the approach I suggest is that you first rsync your files, then stop the writes, and then rsync again. Now this time rsync will only sync the deltas which has been written since the last rsync. Okay. So this will be far more faster than your usual way. Okay. And then enable writes. So the this difference between stop writes and enable writes will be smaller, and that way you could achieve a decent amount of you know decent amount of efficiency in writes in backup. So you have questions for this? Okay, I'm moving on. Okay, backup is, no, backup is based on database, and collections is just part of the database. Okay. Now the second way of backing up, which is a better way, is mongodump. Mongodump basically takes your database or collections and creates high fidelity backup. The difference between mongodump and mongo export is that mongodump dumps the whole database, while mongo export does only the particular collection. Mongodump creates a binary file with a bson structure. Okay. So the file which mongodump going to create is going to be bson, and also contains all the it also contains the it also contains the indexes with respect to the collections. Okay. So this is mongodump is also pretty simple and quite efficient for smaller DBs, and runs against any running MongoS. It also basically backs up a sharded system, and it does impact the performance while you are running against a sharded system. Your MongoS, it is going to definitely impact your sharder, and generally it is used against a secondary then. Okay, which means that for all the replica sets you will have to do it separately. And the important aspect of mongodump is that it can run against the local files too. If you tell mongodump ki, hey, this is my data folder, take the dump of it, then it does it, and it takes really high fidelity backup. Okay. So the is good way is to just shut down a secondary server. Okay, you must you having a shutdown, I mean secondary server, and take the backup of file, and then finish it. The only downside of this approach is, in case your backup took a lot of time, your secondary will lose a lot of, because the oplog primary will keep on increasing its oplog. People are writing to primary, primary has to maintain oplog so that other people can synchronize from it. So if secondary is and remember that oplog, when we discussed, was a capped collection, which means that beyond a certain size the older data is going to washed away. Okay. So in case your secondary is down for quite some time, you might lose some of the rights. Okay. That is why uh, shutting down secondary for too long would be a problem. So you should keep optimum time. Okay. Basically, the copying files had a problem where point in time backups were not possible, and MongoDump also has got some problems with respect to backing up. Okay. So also, so MongoDump basically, just a second, let me have a look at it. MongoDump. I'm having a look at my command. Okay. So when you don't specify MongoDump a collection to be backed up, it will back up the whole database. That's what I meant by when I was answering Sakti's question. So basically, MongoDump can dump the whole database, while Mongo Export will dump a collection by collection. Okay. So difference between MongoDump and Mongo Export. So Mongo Export basically exports in JSON format and does not export the indexes. You'll have to rebuild the indexes by yourself. While MongoDump exports the file into BSON format and more efficient than Mongo export, as well as also in case of Mongo import that is more efficient. I mean less efficient as compared to Mongo restore, because Mongo restore does it in bulk. I mean the whole mechanism is quite smooth, and the more important aspect is the indexes and other aspect. In case of Mongo export and Mongo import, you will have to build your own indexes again. Yeah, yeah, you were right, Bhagwat. Oplogs are kept collection, that is why there was a problem. So I hope you got the idea. In case of and is this because the oplogs are kept collections? Can we increase the size of kept collection? Yeah, yeah, you can increase the size of kept collection, of course. That is why you can increase the oplog size, right? You can increase the oplog size based on your requirement. And generally people keep it enough. People keep it enough. And also I forgot to mention here that there are a couple of more strategies which people follow when backing up. One is that people keep a machine which is hidden and delayed. Okay. So there is a machine in your replica set whose role is just to be hidden and delayed. Okay. Hidden as in it will never serve a read or write. Okay. It will have the data delayed by certain amount of time. Okay. So when you are backing up replica set, consider backing up a delayed file system. Okay. A delayed secondary server, because first it is not under any load other than taking a backup. Okay. Other than taking a copy of copy of data from secondary or primary or from replica set. Second, objective of a hidden a second benefit of using a hidden delayed secondary is that you remember we talked about hidden delayed secondary. Hidden delayed secondary's role is that first hidden secondary is the one who, when you are booting up a secondary, you are creating a secondary server, you mark this guy as hidden. Okay. As well as priority 0, which means it will neither become primary, it will not serve any traffic to anybody, so neither read nor write. and it is not a contender in anything. On the top of it, I think it doesn't even vote. I don't remember that part. So and and if you make it delayed, which means that the backup while you're copying files will not change, because every 1 hour, for every 1 hour, the local database files are going to be updated. Okay. So to keep your backup files consistent, that is another strategy. So mongodump you can also when you are taking you can actually take a point in time backup using mongodump. Okay. So if you say backup oplog also, it will backup the oplog also. So whatever changes are there that has happened during this would be there in oplog anyway. Alright. So if you can backup the oplog also, then there are higher chances that your backup is going to be very consistent. Similarly, while you are restoring such a backup which has oplog records, you can say oplog replay, which means that after your main data has been, say there was a database file X, you started copying it, okay, and uh, during you were copying this database file, there were changes in the oplog which were to be applied onto this file, right? And I mean, so so those changes are going to be there in oplog anyway, and they will remain for some time. So after you have finished your database file A, you have copied the oplog also, and then you will be taking the another third second database file and their oplog, and so on, and so on. So if you take a backup of oplog also, which means your data is going to be consistent, because if you remember, we talked about oplog where if you try to apply the same oplog entry onto your data, again it would not have any impact. So when you are replaying oplog, it wouldn't, even if the data is there already in your database, what is there in the oplog, it will be okay. It will not apply that particular change. Yeah, you should increase the size of your kept collection. Right. So I'm not sure if hidden member. Wait, wait. What do you see? Okay. Let me also check because I have forgotten. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, every member votes. You are right. Even hidden, I just checked. So every member, that's the only thing which every member does, whether delayed or hidden. So yes. So generally strategy is to keep a hidden delayed member somewhere in a third network. Okay, somewhere away, whose role is just to take a backup of all the servers. Okay. And the local files you can use another tool to take the files and put it in tape drive or somewhere, and this hidden delayed role is to assist you in taking the backups. Okay. So these are, and the third one, the most important one, is your MMS. So MongoDB, since these two solutions, simple copying files and MongoDump, were not really fail proof. So they came up with something called MMS. which is their own, again, a tool by them, and it is available in two modes, which is on-premise and cloud. Meaning your backup will be available locally, can be copied locally, as well as will be taken to their cloud. The cloud one, if you back up to their cloud, it is going to cost you. While if you use their on-premise solution, it is not going to cost you. Okay. And it has like all of these problems related to MongoDump and other aspects. They have tried to eliminate using this particular tool. It's called MongoDB Management Service. It continuously backs up replica set, sharded system, and it, as I was describing you about the oplog in case of MongoDump and Mongo Restore. This whole tool is based on oplog, and it does a point in time snapshot of the system, and the is it provides you a really consistent snapshot, and for each replica set you can roll back to any moment of time in the last 24 hours. While in case of a Mongo S, a sharded system, you cannot you cannot roll back to any moment, but on a at a periodic time. When you are defining backup, you can define that you for my sharded system, I want to jump to these periods. While in case of replica set, it can give you a per second basis or per minute basis or any point of time basically in the history where you for last 24 hours. And this is also available on the premise. Okay. So these are the three modes, three general ways. One is copying files, other is taking backup using MongoDump, and third one is using MMS. Okay. Okay. Now let's talk about monitoring strategies. How do you monitor a MongoDB? First, there are lots of utilities. I must have demonstrated you like MongoStat. Okay. Similar to NetStat, it shows you what's the current status of MongoStat. So from the command line itself, you can do that. And then you have Mongo top. Basically, there is a command in Unix called top which shows you the performance. Shows you the performance, basically the CPU usage and everything. And you have HTTP console, which is host colon 28017. And also, if you are not able to find out what is this HTTP console's URL or port, you can have a look at the logs. Also, it provides you the REST interface from where you can access the database from the web, from the browser. Okay. So I'll just give you a quick demo of all of this. Okay. I hope you guys are able to see. So MongoStat is something like this. So MongoStat shows you how many inserts are happening every second. It keeps on refreshing. And then how many queries, how many updates, how many deletes, how many get more as in when we ask the cursor to give the more results. and what how many commands are being executed, how many flushes. I mean, flushes means that the data is being pushed to the disk. And mapped is because any writes in MongoDB is basically into the memory mapped files, and the memory is mapped to the disk, and that is called mapped. Then you have virtual size and how much time it has been. um, okay, just let me just increase it width of it. Okay, just a second. Okay, now this looks better. Yeah. So how many read queries, write queries, and all of this is there. Okay. Similarly, you have Mongo top. So Mongo top every second it keeps on giving you all of this against each databases. Okay, how many reads, how many writes, and this shows you clearly against each of the collections, actually not databases, collections or namespace. It shows you this helps you, better understanding when what's going on with the each of the collection or how much your query is hitting who. And similarly, let's go over to the host. I'll just share my screen. Okay, so here we have localhost. So this is the web interface which gives you a better way of understanding what's going on with your system. So as you can see the state of journal, what is the operation ID, okay, what port do they open, and all of the information. And then this is the again the result of top which we showed you. Okay, so this is like everything whatever we do with the command line. Okay, so you can go and explore it, and you will realize that a lot of things could happen if you using this interface. Okay, so there is a completely HTTP console and there is a REST interface. REST interface, as in from the URL itself, you can query a collection. Okay, and yeah. So first way of monitoring is using these utilities, MongoStat, MongoTop, and HTTP console. And then there are commands like server status we had showed you earlier, like db.serverstatus, db. db.stats, or simply dbstats, and then we have db.collection.stat, okay, which is equivalent to coll stats command. Okay, so there are basically functions related to each of the commands provided by MongoDB, and there is something called replica replica set get status. It is equivalent to saying rs.status. So these are the various commands provided by MongoDB, which shows you the status of your MongoDB. Okay, and you should go through all of those, and you should be able to understand the output of those. Okay. So db.server-status, mongodb. Just a second, I'll not share right now. Okay. Okay. So here, so if you do a db.server-status, I am in the Mongo command line, and I say db.server-status, and you get this huge output. So this is db.server-status. Okay. If you can see the process ID, then version, then uptime, for how long, uptime as in how, for how long the server has been up. Server has been, I mean, this daemon has been up. The connections, then cursors, what are the cursors open. Okay, and the durability, I mean commits, how many commits. And you can also have a look at these logs. Per database, it shows you how many logs are there. Okay. And how much time, I mean, for each of the logs on each of the database. Okay. For how much time the read and write time has gone in read and write logs. So there's a lot of statistics there. Okay. Similarly here, matrix.cursor, and how many cursors are open as of today, and how many documents deleted, how many inserted, how many returned. All of this statistics is there for each database. Okay. It also shows you a TTL statistics. How many documents have been deleted? You remember we only deleted 2 documents while demonstration using TTL and nothing else. So there are a lot of statistics. How do I? Okay. So there's a lot of statistics you can see using these commands. Then there are third-party tools like Gangalia, Motop, and multiple more, with which you can monitor the status of your Mongo. And MMS, if you are using MongoDB monitoring service, then the monitoring is free in that. Okay, you don't have to pay for. If you are just using for monitoring, then you don't have to buy it. Now let's talk about performance issues. Should I carry on, or you have questions? Okay, okay. Bhagwat, Sakti, Samta. So earlier when we talked about performance, we talked about we have touched upon various aspects such as that such as understanding your database query using explain, okay, and then creating indexes wherever it is required. Okay. So to understand what is exactly going on with the query, what else could you do is first DB profiling. In the DB profiling, you can set the level of DB profiling. Okay. And this DB profiling will be reported in the logs, in the profiler logs. Okay. So generally after a point in time when the data keeps on growing and or data keeps on growing, you might have to, or the load is increasing, and your RAM might not be sufficient. So maybe you need to increase RAM, or should we you add one more shard into MongoDB. So those are the decisions to be taken after you do a performance analysis of your system. Okay. So first thing to do is to do a DB profiling. Okay. And after you have done the set the DB profiler, you can do a system.profile.find, and system.profile is another collection which also stores the profiling information, and you can do a find on that collection to get all the details. And you can also see the replica set's status as to understand what is going on in this particular replica set. Okay. Similarly, shard assets.status, you should be able to understand how much, which shard is loaded how much using seeing the status. Okay. And what are the current operations going on your MongoDB? It is important because every time you get into performance issues, it is generally this panic mode that why my systems are slow. And that's when you should check your db.current op, which shows you what exactly is going into in your MongoDB. Okay. Then first is set your DB profiling and keep on checking your DB, keep on monitoring your database. Second is logs. So when you say db.server status, you should check a section called global lock. Okay. So if the global lock time, uh, if the global lock total time is greater than uptime, that means there is something wrong. There is a deadlock. Okay. Or it's approaching your uptime. Okay. So in these cases, somewhere there is a lock or somebody is not closing your connections. So in these circumstances, generally what you do is you go into the db.logs and try to find out what all logs are being created onto your database. Okay. So global log section of your db.server status. Just a second, I'll share my screen. This is the one. So this is the section when you say db.server status, which shows you the total uptime and lock time. If your lock time goes beyond total time, then there is something wrong. Okay, there's something seriously wrong. You need to have a look at all the logs which are there in the system. db dot 1 second show dbs and system dot use system show collections. Just a second. use admin show collections. Oh, there are no locks in my system. Use test show locks. Show collections. There are no locks created here. Anyway, so the way generally there is this system.indexes, you get to see the locks also here. Okay, never mind, never mind. I'll just check and send you later. Okay. So second performance issue, uh, I mean basically the first performance issue could be locks and then memory usage. Okay. So if your mem.resident is higher than RAM, mem.resident is basically a memory mapped file. Okay. So MongoDB uses a lot of memory mapped files, which basically gives you local files in the memory. Okay. And MongoDB uses RAM very aggressively. So and these files when are basically whenever you are writing to RAM, okay, they get quickly written to these files, or you are reading from RAM, this read from these files. So a lot of memory mapped files are being used in case of MongoDB. And if the mem.resident is higher than RAM, okay, what does it signify? That it signifies that you are doing a lot of file reads, okay, which is hitting your caches, okay. I mean, or you can say that you are doing a lot of reads from the disk for to keep keep the read requirements from the RAM. Okay. In these circumstances, either you need to split, okay, that machine into two shards, or you might have to upgrade this machine's RAM. Okay. Because the amount of data you need in the RAM is bigger than the RAM which you have right now. So this is one sign when you say db.server status under the mem.resident is so higher than your actual RAM available, then you need to upgrade. And then connections. Check the active connections. There are a lot of times what API and all these functions do is that those developers forget to close the connections, which end up being open connection for very long. And this hits the performance of database very, very badly. Or if somebody has opened hundreds of connections in a loop and then he hasn't closed it as soon as the work was over, then it becomes a very, very big issue for you. Okay. So that so first was logs, second was memory usage, third was number of connections, Fourth is page fault. Similar to memory usage, page faults is a sign that your RAM is RAM is insufficient. Okay. So what is a page fault? In case of in the terms of operating system words, we call it that a page fault occurs when your RAM is not sufficient and you have to write to the disk or or read from the disk whenever the data is required uh, f- for your process. Then it's called a page fault. Okay, you are trying to write to the memory, but memory was insufficient. So memory and RAM are used interchangeably. Okay, files and disk are used interchangeably. So, in the circumstances when RAM was insufficient and you have to write to the disk, that is called a page fault. In these circumstances, again, same thing. Uh, you will have to either increase your RAM or have to shard the data. Okay. So these are the few things with respect to performance. Now, out of this, we talked about backup, we talked about monitoring. Let's talk about runtime config. This is an aspect. This is an aspect almost everybody has gone through. Okay. So the other aspect of the operational strategy is to how do you configure your system. Okay. So there are two ways to, configure your system. One is through the file and other is through the command line. Okay. Okay. When will the map.resident be more? When will the not be more? Okay. It will not be more when your database size is smaller, indexes are smaller, and the amount of data you are reading or writing is lower, meaning your oplogs and oplogs and general is smaller. So in the cases when your reads and writes plus the data you are trying to store is smaller, then your basically map.resident will be smaller. Mam.resident, not map. Okay. So runtime db config in the you remember last time we showed you how to configure your database. So to boot up any database, all you need to do is any MongoDB daemon. All you need to do is call the MongoDB file with various configurations, and these configuration options are already mentioned, like port number and the name, the type, and where do we want to store the data, where do we want to store the logs, and those kind of things. And all of these config can be either passed via command line or could be passed through a config file. Okay. So this is generally how we configure a MongoDB. Now, other than what we have traditionally discussed, these are the few more options onto runtime DB config. So first is fork equals true. Okay. You must have noticed that when you were those people who were trying to start their MongoDB as part of the last assignment, where you have to boot all of these 6 instances, two for each replica, one for MongoS and one for config.db. Okay. So when you were trying to boot up all of this, what were you trying to do is that basically uh, you must have kept all of your 6 terminals open. Okay. The moment you close any of your terminals, these processes will go down or get suspended. And to keep it running in the background, even if you close the terminal, To do that, you need to detach it from the current process. So, what does it mean by detaching from? Whenever from any terminal, when you are starting a process, it's basically a child process of this terminal. And when the terminal goes down, it impacts the child process. And if you declare that this child process is a daemon, then it gets detached from this its parent and keeps on running in the background. So if you mention in your config file fork equals true, then you can safely close the terminal without impacting your MongoD process which you have started. Okay. And second is bind underscore IP. So if you know this aspect, these are very simple things with respect to networking. So every machine has got a loopback IP address. Loopback IP address is either represented by 0000 in some machines, or it is represented as 127.0.0.1. Okay, this is a de facto. This IP address is de facto. So even if you have no network card in your machine, you still have got a loopback IP address. Okay, and the more network interfaces you have, you will have more number of IP addresses. You have say three network cards in your machine, or you have software which creates more number of network interfaces for your machine. In case of routers, in case of firewalls, you have multiple machines, multiple IP address for the same machine. And while you are running your MongoDB, you have to tell specifically on which IP address does it need to bind. Okay. So it only binds to a particular network interfaces, not all. Okay. So 127.0.1, which was loopback, is there everywhere. So whenever I want to ping my local system or connect to a port at local system, I connect to 127.0.1. And there is an IP address. And on our cluster, I forgot to mention this part. I will show you. Okay. So on our cluster, there are basically three IP addresses. First is local 127.0.0.1, which is a loopback IP address. We, if you see if config, ifconf config onto the Linux machine, it shows you that these are the these are the things running out there. Basically these are the network interfaces. If config shows you the network interfaces, and it will be in the form of ETH0, ETH1, or it will be in the form of LO. LO is loopback, which is 127.0.1. So you can bind your MongoDB with respect to each of these interfaces. And in case of our cluster, you will have three network interfaces. First one is your public, which I have mentioned in the file which is given to you, and there will be there will be another one which is virtually public, which means it is for the LAN creation. So all of the MongoDB instances will be able to see each other, but people from outside will not be able to connect to them. Okay. So those IP address, not yet, I'm not showing. So I will basically share my browser. Okay. So under this, if you go to my courses, And you have in the section 5 or 6, 6. Okay. In the 6, you have got assignment. Okay. So this is the IP address I have given. Instead of that, what I will do is I will also provide you with the one more IP address here, which is my public IP address. Sorry, which is my virtually public. Okay. So that these machines will be able to connect to each other, but no outsider will be able to connect to them. Okay. So there is a concept which our the service provider has given us is that you can create a LAN, create a local virtual private network (VPN) amongst these machines without getting connected from outside. Okay, so I'll mention that IP address also here, VP virtual IP address here, and these are the public IP address. So if you are connected from outside, you will connect to these machines, this IP address. But when you are configuring your MongoOS, you will be mentioning that particular virtual private address. That will be in the form of 10 dot something dot something. Okay, I'll add one more. This is public IP address. So now if you configure, okay, let me answer Samta's questions also. So in our case, where each of us will have an instance running, will binding to no binding to the same port creates a problem, but binding to the same IP doesn't create a problem. Okay, no two person can cater to the same port. Okay, no two separate processes. If there is, you have Bhagwat has configured MongoOS to run on MongoDB 1 on 8000 port, then Umang cannot run the same on the same port. That is why I've given different ports to all the people on the same machine. Okay. While when you are connecting to these servers, use these public IP addresses, and while you are configuring and saying bind IP equals something, you should mention the virtual private IP address, VPN IP, which I will be providing you very soon. Okay, I just have to go through the list. Okay, so I'll update here. Basically, here, yeah, here I'll just add, if I can add, insert one column left and say virtual private IP. Here I'll be okay, I'll just call this, and then it'll be something like this. Okay. So when you are binding, bind to this VPIP. Okay, and that should be fine. Because see, when you are creating these config servers and you are making this MongoDB, right now it is open and public to all the people. Okay. So question is, why do we need to bind underscore IP? Because by default it is bound to only the local one, which is loopback. Okay. And loopback cannot be accessed from outside. Okay. Loopback is just generally like an echo. Okay. So whenever any server, bind IP is not a concept with respect to MongoDB. It is a very general concept. Whenever we are creating a network process, a daemon or a network server, starting from Apache to say FTP and all of them, they have to say that we will be starting at this port. And this network interface, okay, bind IP essentially says that I want to cater to this interface or this IP address. Okay. So whenever people are trying to connect to this network interface, which is signified by this IP address, I will be answering this all the queries on this port. Okay, that is the purpose of bind IP address. If you say bind IP address localhost or 127.0.1 in case of MongoDB, then you can happily connect to this service, happily connect to this service through the local machine, but will not be able to connect from outside. Okay. So Bhagwat's question is, how do I know what is my bind IP? I'm not sure if server status. Uh, just a second. It is not. I'm not sure if server status shows you that. No, it doesn't show you. It doesn't show you. Okay. Right. Yeah. So it doesn't show you, but there is a command called netstat. Okay. Netstat shows you which server is running on what interface and have occupied which port. Also, the other way to find out what MongoDB is running on which port is to have a look at the config file. Okay. If bind IP is not available there, that means it's bound to the local IP address. Okay. So I hope I was able to answer your question. Okay. Question is the answer is that to find out what daemon are running on what port and what network interfaces, you can use netstat, net, net, netstat. Okay, that will show you the details of who has occupied which port and which on which interface. Okay, and also you can check your MongoDB config file. If bind IP address is either localhost or is missing, then it is bound to the loopback address. It will not be You will not be able to connect to it from anywhere else. Basically, you will have to set netstat minus a and p and all other flags so that Mongo can come in the command line. Okay, it should be mongodb most likely. Okay, now the other aspects. So, was I able to explain to you? Okay, now you're confused. Let me again try to explain. So, does anybody has a doubt about bind IP? Who all? This is a general concept, and people should know a little bit. That is why I would like to explain it more. So, whenever you are running a process, it's under etc and it's called mongo.conf. Okay. So, you do which mongo and it shows you a folder. In my case, user local var and then mongodb. Okay. In my case, it is user local var mongodb, and under that it is there. Okay. Under etc. Oh, where is it? Don't worry. So, okay. Basically, it is to do with the home folder of the Mongo. Okay. So his question is, how do I mean, I do a generally a brute force approach, in which I just search for everything and to try to find out where is my config is stored. So we have journal, we have temp directory, we have journal, and that's it. And what about etc? Okay, okay. Oh, they have changed this location. Never mind, never mind. For your operating system, you can yeah. So I generally do a find slash minus name mongo.conf. So if you run it for some time, you should get it. But I mean, you can also check check the website where in on your operating system it is stored. You can try to search Google. Okay. So what was the question actually? Where are the doubts with respect to bind IP? I can clarify those. Bhagwat, Sakti, Umang, are you clear about the and Samta, are you clear about the bind IP thing? Because it's a general thing. It's not only with respect to particularly MongoDB. Yes, exactly. That's the point, Bhagwat. So if you make it public, right? So what people will be able to do is they will be able to say Mongo our IP address and that's it, and they will be able to connect it. Or MongoDB dot MongoDB1 dot nobigdata.com. That's it from their command line. Now they are not. I mean, they will be able to directly connect to these servers, and anyone can access it. And that's not a very great idea. Okay. And if you set it to the local host, the problem will be that even your Mongo S will not be able to route traffic to these guys, and a secondary will not be able to connect to the primary. Okay. So you got the point, Bhagwat. So there are two solutions to this. First, we bind the IP address to the virtual private IP address provided by the cloud service provider. Cloud service provider has provided one more network interface, and that should work. Okay. Let and the other would be that we secure these servers. So that I'll cover how do you secure the server in the second half. Okay. So you got the point exactly what I was trying to convey. So there are two options. First, make it public and secure it. Second, make it on the private virtual private IP address. Okay. But the thing is, in case of virtual private IP address, I'm not sure how secure it is. But then it's not something very confidential data we are going to do in these exercises. Okay. So nothing to worry about that much. And that is why I was also okay with Samta setting it up on a public IP address. Okay. So Samta, were you able to connect the replica server private and secondary? Okay. Great. Hey, anybody else has questions about this? Because this is important. While you are setting your cluster, right? When you are setting up the cluster, or anyway, you should be knowing a little bit about ports and IP addresses. Okay. 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 So were you able to define that this guy is my secondary, this guy is primary? So you had booted primary, then you must have said that add this as the into the replica set. Okay. 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 So let me also have a look at it, and then yeah, we can carry on. Anybody else has questions? Otherwise, I'll move on. Sakti? Great, great. So Sakti has got a clear idea now. Okay. Now let's talk. Then we have an option called log append equals true, so that the logs are not overwritten. They keep on appending to the logs. And journal equals to true. Journal is by default switched off. Okay, and that's not a great idea. Helps you. Journal helps you against the power failure, sudden power failure, or any other sudden server shutdown. You do not lose the immediate most recent request which have come from the user. Okay. So if you say slow milliseconds equals 50, which means that it will start creating, uh, I mean, basically, it will slow down the profiling. Okay. The slowdown as in every 50 milliseconds should it profile, or it will uh, start profiling 1 millisecond and all that. So the lower the value, the more log and profiling information will be generated. Okay. And a profile level is 3, which I mean more frequently the slow means that more frequently it will be generated, while if you say verbose equals to true and profile equals to 3, prof profile equals to 3 will increase the amount of information going into the profile system.profile database, and, and if you say verbose equals to true, it will start to give more log information. So if you are no have no clue and you love to look at the logs, you should turn these things on. Okay. Validate the request. I mean, when the requests are coming from the users, it is validate them upfront rather than later. So as soon as the insert request is coming, and you can enable object check equals to true. This basically reduces total number of connections to the MongoDB if there are not if there are a lot of bogus connections are coming. So you guys want a break? Hey guys, I'm back. And the important aspect which we have not talked yet is about this Mongo import and export. Okay. We have just touched upon it very quickly. So, i- Mongo import or Mongo export, other than getting JSON data into MongoDB, you can also convert uh, tab separated or a comma separated values into MongoDB. So when we'll be talking about the project. So most of the data, public data is available as of today. Amazon Web Services, and there are hundreds of public data sources from where you can get the data, such as Twitter data and everything. And most of it would be either tab separated or comma separated. In those cases, when the external data has to be imported into Mongo, it is quite a useful command. It's quite a useful command. So as an example, so first Mongo import and Mongo export happens on a collection. Okay. And you can import and export a collection. It doesn't carry with it index of the collection. You'll have to create index by yourself. Second, it can import the file. Okay. So this is the format which I just tried, meaning this is the input echo abc. So a comma b comma c will be input to MongoDB, and like this. Okay. So MongoDB, my database is test, my collection is some SCSV, and then field a comma b comma c, meaning the small a, small b, small c will become the values for capital A, capital B, capital C fields in the CSV collection which exists in the test database. And the type we have said is CSV. Instead of saying echo here, we'll say cat xyz file. Okay. Or here there is a argument also which says minus minus file, from where you can import it. Okay. So this command is very decent. Okay. So these command help you convert CSV into JSON. Yeah, it has been started. Can't you hear it? Hello? Okay. Okay. So Mongo import, Mongo export is to import the data into Mongo and export the data from Mongo. And this is very important. This is the starting point of your game. So question is, hello? Sakti is not able to hear. Sakti, can you just disconnect for a second and then connect back? I think it has to, because everybody able to hear. Just close this window and then join it back. Okay. Can you hear now, Sakti? So when we talked about Mongo dump and Mongo restore, those commands will take input in JSON and give output in JSON. Can you hear Sakti? Can you just give me a feedback? Okay. And in case of Mongo import, if you have to import CSV data, tab separated data, or any other form of data into MongoDB, then this is your gateway. Okay. Now, Bhagwat's question was, what is this guy doing? Eco is doing here. This one. Okay. So this is just an example. Okay, where I take basically this is a common form of piping the data into an Unix process. Okay, whatever data is coming from eco, the data would be coming a comma b comma c, and that data goes to Mongo import and does the job. Mongo import takes that data, understands that our field specification where we have said my fields are capital A comma capital B comma capital C, and then it imports the data. Or if you don't want this, you can say, instead of saying this, we can say cat my file, which means anything there in the my file, it will be printed onto the pipe, meaning the content of this file will be given out and will be given over to Mongo import. So it's like pipe, whatever coming out from here is going to this process after the pipe. So this is the pipe. Okay. And cat file basically does print the content of a file. That's it. And that goes into the pipe and goes out this one. And if you don't like this pipe stuff, okay, although it's pretty cool because you can do, grep xyz, meaning only those rows which have xyz will be handed over to Mongo import. Okay. Similarly, also what you can do is you can basically put a minus minus file here, minus 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 file and my file dot c. Okay, so you can do this way also. There are multiple options actually. Okay, but I prefer this pipe way better. I will do cat my xyz file and then do a filtering on that in Unix and then hand it over to Mongo import. So Bhagwat's question is that if you don't do F, then we'll not have a structure, I guess. Yeah, yeah. And F is required when you are using CSV or anything. Minus FF is required. Okay. Because you need to give the names to the fields. Okay. Great, great. Similarly, there is a tab separate format on all these formats. So remember this syntax. It will be pretty useful as we go forward. And other important aspect is, if you guys nobody actually has told it, I'll show you some cool stuff. Okay, I will just share my terminal with you. This will be cool actually. Okay, can see. So I'll just take this example first. Done. Okay, it's just a second. What did I do? Oh, the quote is bothering us. Imported one object. Can you see that I executed that command and say, I can say now Mongo and yeah, use test and say db.scsv okay, one was existing already and one we have just now added. Okay, and we can say scsv dot drop, and that's it, it's dropped. And you can use the Mongo import and export so as to convert a CSV file into JSON format. And that's interesting idea. Also, there is a command called cat here. I will just take a file. Say we have I'm just thinking of a file. What should I keep? Okay. Hmm. Okay, let's just take a case of I was trying to do some sensor analysis. Okay, so we have got these values. Okay, some values. Okay, which is under underscore x dot txt, and I want to import it and programmatically handle it. So I say x equals to cat underscore x dot txt in the double quotes. Okay. Now if you see x has got all of this, all of the data. Now you can write a for loop. Okay. If you say x0, it gives you the first row, x00, first row, first column. So each line by line read you can do it for you. It can do for you. Okay. So basically cat is an important game here. X equals cat blah. And it loaded all the file into this variable, which x and o, which you can iterate very nicely. Okay, for I equals 0, I less than 10, I plus plus, and then I say uh, print, or I can say db dot sense data, db dot sense data dot insert. Okay, and I say x0 is my x0. Okay, basically I'm inserting documents with the key called x0 and value this. Okay, and there you go. Why did it say db.sensedata.find? Okay, so in all of these cases it seems that, so let me have a look at x0, x10, x11. Type of x. Okay, it says string. So basically x is a string, and you can x split x with a new line, and then further split, say, fifth row. Okay, and then further split it using a tab, and then you can say 1. Okay, so was I able to convey to you? Basically all I did was read everything as a single string. Okay, and then split it by new line, and then split it by tab, and then I'm able to import it. So basically whole ETL, half of the ETL you can do using this mechanism. Okay, if you have 10 files to import, what you do is that you split the you keep all the 10 files and send it to. Okay, Sakti, what we did was, so this is a Mongo client, right? Mongo client provides you the full javascript console. In the cases, say you got a file to import onto Mongo, very simple. You got a file to import to Mongo. Now this file has got a very weird format. Okay, all you want is that you want to, before importing the data into Mongo, what do you want to do is you want to split. You have to just take the alternative lines. Let's just imagine that you want to import alternative lines. In the input file, only the alternative lines, meaning first, third, fifth, seventh, ninth, these lines contain the data. Okay. Now, how do you do it? Mongo import will import everything. Okay. And will bother you if those fields are not found. And basically, it becomes little difficult to figure out how do I convert an input data into my collections and rows and objects. For this, there is a whole ETL out there. Whole ETL out there. Although all the people who provide ETL services, ETL is exactly this. ETL is extract, transform, and load. Okay. Extract, transform, and load, meaning convert the data from one format and load it into so such that it can be loaded into the database. So whole ETL mechanisms are there, but if you don't have an ETL tool, and almost all the ETL reporting, everybody has started providing MongoDB driver. In case you don't have a ETL tool, you can use this Mongo client very quickly. It will come very handy when it comes to your project data import. Okay. Or when we are talking about some some other data kind of imports. So what you could do is this Mongo gives you a very quick access to a programming language. You don't have to open Eclipse, you don't have to compile anything, run anything, or whatever. Uh, Bhagwat, can we ask question on that one? Actually, it is a little disturbing on the personal chat. Okay, it's okay. You can ask if it's not big deal. Okay. Yeah. So basically, what I was trying to show you, there is a command called cat. Okay. I did a here, here. I did a cat. Okay. This file contains a lot of data. Okay. This X is basically now all of this data is loaded into this variable in memory. Remember, it's all in memory. And in this file, we have read the whole file into the memory. Now, whenever we do, this is a string. We can, if I say x2, it's basically I'm trying to get the second character from that string. Now, what I could do is I could split this string by new line because, okay, so it has splitted or created lines, an array of lines in the JSON format, if you see. And if you say 0, there is no two characters, but in the 2, if you see, so you can here you can write a logic. If the line contains at least one element, now here you can further split it by a tab. Okay, and you will see this. You see these, it got converted. Now you can loop over all of this data and insert the documents. Okay, this is an important aspect. Most of us would not be able to find it. Rest of the things what I've described earlier, you can find it here and there. But this is something you would not be able to get. So this makes the whole importing life very easy. Okay, if your data is small enough, I mean, if you have like 100 files and you have splitted the data into 100 files, loop over all the files, load each one, and then split them and assign it to something else. Okay. And once you are done with with the variable, so what you can do is I'll show you. Here, you can say this is my array, or you can just assign back to x. Okay. Now x is an array. For I equals 0, I less than x dot length, I plus plus. And then I can iterate over this array which I have just created. My line equals x I, and then I say x I dot split by tab, and that's it. Now I say this becomes my array. Okay, and I just want to print, or I want to insert db into x dot insert my name equals arrayth 0 element and value. Oh, I'm not showing my screen. I'm extremely sorry. I'm extremely sorry. Uh, oh, can you see my screen? Good. Okay. Val equals ARR1, and that's it. And then, and there you go. Done. Now if you see db.x.find, it'll have all these. You see, all of it is inserted out there as JSON object. Okay. This is my sensor data. I was working on some sensor project, basically detecting mobile double tap. So I just inserted all of the data quickly. So be handy with the client, and you will not have this. See, half of the time the uh, problem of uh, problem of churning the data is loading and converting data. And then the second aspect comes up, which stops you from experimenting, is who will write code in Java or Eclipse and then compile it and then run it. MongoDB is actually great in that sense that it the whole turnaround time is very small. Okay, you can just start fiddling with the data as soon as possible. Okay, so I hope I was able to explain to you how ETL could be done. Okay, and if your data is bigger, okay, if you're so I mean, for example, when in my organization, when I was running T-Bits, so data import used to be the biggest game. Data import used to be the biggest game, and we had to write all of this code and convert the data. None of the ETL tools was able to transform the data of people. Okay, because they maintained Excel sheet, they maintain all sorts of things. So you need all these connectors, ETL connectors, who can help you, giving them, providing the interface to various files. Okay, cool. So was I able to explain to you? And for exporting is a similar syntax where I say collection is this, database is this, and then my output file is that. Yeah. Did I miss questions? I'm able to hear then. Just wait. Let me have a look at it. Okay. Then what if many files? So for Mongo import, we don't need to connect. Okay. Let me. Okay. So for Mongo import, actually, it scrolls up as you type. So for Mongo import, we don't need to connect to Mongo first. No, you don't need to connect to Mongo first. Mongo import is separate command. That is why it's called separate utility. It's not a command. Okay, okay, okay. It's taking like a string. Yes, you are right, Bhagwat. Okay, okay. Mongo import. Yeah. Okay. We have Mongo for Mechanic 6. Okay, great. Okay. So I think everybody questions is answered. I've gone through the list and there are no. Mongo prompt can access the local directory. Yes. Yeah. Ask Bhagwat. I'm fitting. Basically, wherever you are there, Mongo prompt can help you accessing the local file system. Not local file directory, local file system. You can do ls, you can do all sorts of things. Okay. Yeah, I think it doesn't allow you to change local file system. Basically, if you say Mongo and say help admin, so if you say help admin, it will show you all the things you need. The only difference is that there is first is you can do ls pwd. Okay, you can say pwd and it shows you the present working directory. And then you have a cat command, then host name, then list files and remove files. Okay, and nothing more than that. These are the few simple commands they have provided. No, you can give the absolute location or relative location. Okay, you don't need to have that file. Okay. So basically if I have to say cat dot dot slash tab data and then underscore x dot txt, I can do that. Okay. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that basically I don't need to show the this. I still have questions with the local file data I could not change. Okay. Basically, you can give the absolute or relative location. Okay. And your question basically is that you can specify files in the format like dot dot the standard Unix format. Okay. The standard Unix format. Do not worry about that. And what you did with X, could you use Mongo import to do? Yeah, you could use Mongo import to do, but I was trying to demonstrate that you could parse better if you have your own logic in place, if your Mongo import is not helping it. And after you have understood X, you splitted it by new line, which means it became an array of rows. Then you splitted each row, and then by tab, it became the uh, whole matrix. Basically, each row got split into two values. And then I iterated over all these values and then inserted the as a document db.insert and then x. Okay. Okay. Hope it's clear now. Let's move on. Okay. So these are few best practices. Production notes, when I say it means best practices. First is use latest release, as we also face the problem of the location format and GeoJSON formats in the earlier one, and we were having different outputs. So always use a latest release, latest stable release. Then on production, always use 64-bit, because on 32-bit you cannot go on. It's an operating system problem that no process on a 32-bit system can go beyond 3.3 3.3 GB. Okay. So because 2 to the power 32 is around that. Okay. Okay. So 2 to the power 32. Yeah. So I mean i- the reason because MongoDB is quite a RAM intensive game. It provides you such a fast speed because it uses maximum memory available on your system, and that is why it's better to go for a 32-bit, because in 32-bit the RAM is like very high. Okay, total memory is very high. It's a square of the first one. Okay, while 32-bit can go up to maximum some 4 GB. Okay, it's 2 to the power 31, I think. 2 to the power 31. No, 32 only. Keep journal on. It protects your system from power failures and other crashes. And then have connection pools in your application side. A connection pool is nothing but this when you are using if you have not used a connection pool, the objective of a connection pool is to open multiple connections to MongoDB and keep them ready already. And whenever you want to close the connection, you just return to the connection pool. So there are very good interfaces available for connection pools which does all of this for you without you doing anything. So instead of closing a connection, it puts it back into this slot, which will be available to other parts of your program. Say you have a a project in which there are hundreds of files, all of they connect to MongoDB and they try to do something. Now if you do not cache, or if you do not keep the connection ready, and every time somebody is asking for a connection, you are opening it onto the database, then it is going to be extremely costly for both you as well as for the server. And on the top of it, the other statistics like nearest server and all of that will not be available to you, to this guy, because as I already described that the connection driver keep on polling keep on polling MongoDB and asking which one is nearest out to me, which one is nearest to me by pinging. So if you have not cached the connection, those kind of benefits you can't take, because every time you are going to open the connection, it is going to take some time to figure out the nearest machine. Okay, so in your program, whenever you are using Java or PHP, Perl, whatever, always access MongoDB first through connection pool. So connection pool will give you the connection. You will do operations on that connection, meaning send your aggregation command or do anything. While and this connection pool will be talking to driver, and driver will be talking to the MongoDB. MongoDB is Mongo S basically, and Mongo S will be talking to MongoDB. Okay, so if I have to say it graphically, let me try to draw it. This is your code. Okay. Your say Java code. It will talk to connection pool for asking for connection, and then on that connection, when it has got a connection, it will say through the connection it will talk to the driver. Driver will be continuously talking to MongoS, which will be talking to various shards. Okay, this is the way it happens. Okay, so connection pool is a very cool stuff. And there are actually very matured system. So your code might think that it has closed the connection, but connection pool will handle that close method and will keep it put it back in the back in the bucket instead of closing it, so that if anybody is asking, he'll just rotate this one to that one to the new requestee. So that's how connection pool actually improve. I mean, most of the problems if I see in somebody's web application, first thing I check how is your connection pool doing. Second, I check how is your basically how is your connection pool doing, and second is that are you using indexes or not. If you are using connections, how well are you caching the data? and and then things go on. So first thing I check is generally connection pool, and second is the indexes in the database. So I mean half of the problems are related to that when we talk about sloppiness. And then trusted environment. Okay. If you the way we were talking about today, that our ports are open and people will be connecting to it and all of that. So in these cases that I mean our environment right now is not trusted environment because all of these IP addresses are public and people will be connecting. There are lots of virus scanners and antivirus scanners which keeps on running on the machines, and the attackers keeps on running on all IP addresses, specifically with the DNS names. In and those connections will hit MongoDB badly. Okay, your MongoS will hit them badly, and although it has a protection of login password, but still that might create a denial of service. Denial of service is when you overload a server with so many requests that it can't respond. Okay. Okay, so Java code talks to connection pool. Connection pool gave back the connection. Now your Java code, rest of your Java code will be talking through the connection. Okay. And then every Java code is supposed to close the connection. Or if they are using a connection pool, they should return it to the connection pool. Okay. Yeah, like worker thread pool. So thread pool, connection pool, and all are an example of an object pool, and this is a standard way of doing it. Now you have got have sufficient RAM and CPU, which is very obvious because MongoDB is very RAM intensive. Second, MongoDB, since it does a lot of read and writes from the disk and the locations, although a binary tree, the way it is structured, I mean indexes are basically a tree, I mean a binary tree, and although the binary tree ensures that when you are writing a nearby data, it is written continuously on the disk. But in case of MongoDB, there are random reads from the disk. So, in a disk generally is a magnetic tape in which there is a header which keeps on jumping from one place to another. And if you are reading or writing, and the same header is also used for writing also. So if you are reading or writing from a different locations, it's the same header which is going to jump from here to there. Okay. And that might lead to a bad performance, and that is a bad performance. Other problem with the normal hard disk is your read speeds. Read speeds are really poor in case of normal hard disks as compared to SSD. Solid state hard drives are, this generation's boon because their failure rate is quite low, their read speeds are high, and their sizes are also small. Okay, physical sizes are small, but they're capable and they are little costly. All of our servers, which we have given to you, the clusters, are SSD based. And while storing MongoDB's data, avoid using remote file systems. Remote file systems such example could be your network file system, Linux network file system, or maybe any Samba server which is given the file system. So avoid remote file systems because MongoDB does a lot of writes and reads frequently and on different locations. Your performance might be very bad. And assign swap space for OS. Since MongoDB is going to put a lot of memory into the process, Swap space in an operating system. Swap space, if you have used Linux earlier, so swap space is something which is equivalent of memory mapping uh, in MongoDB. So whenever memory keeps on growing bigger, operating system starts pushing the data from the memory to a physical file, to the disk. Okay, as and when the RAM is going higher, and that is why you should keep a good enough swap space in your operating system. If you do not, then irrespective of which processor are you using, the performance of your process is going to be extremely bad or might even crash. Okay, so assign a good enough swap space as a practice. Whatever RAM size you have, say you have 32 GB RAM. I mean, that's the kind of RAM we talk about when it comes to servers. So say you have 32 GB RAM, so you should generally keep 2x space allocated on the disk for swapping. Okay, so it's generally slash swap, which we assign it while installing the operating system. And the important other aspect is that if you have three separate hard disks, yeah. So swap space is yeah. So it's two times, right? And third point is to separate out the components. When you are installing MongoDB, do not basically DB data you keep it at one place and journal data keep it at another. Okay. As I told you that journal basically helps you, because journal is being parallelly written as the DB data. Okay. If you are storing journal as well as DB data on the same disk, you might get a bit of crash protection, but the DB writes will still suffer. Your existing writes will go slower because is jumping back and forward. Once for writing journal, other is for writing data. And adding a journal actually slowed down your process of writing the data. Okay? Yeah, just give me a second. Just give me a second. Okay. Okay. So similar is the case of logs. It is okay to even though having all these three in the same one, if you have a SSD, because SSD is still fairly fast when doing a random access. But if you keep them separate, it is actually useful. Okay, it improves the performance at least three times because read and write to the file system becomes a bottleneck after a certain period of time. Okay. Now let's move on. The other data management practices is that you should utilize the fact that MongoDB provides you the database awareness by tagging each of the, while setting up servers, you can add tags. Okay, and after using tags, you can make it basically while querying, you could specify that this query goes to what kind of tags. Okay, so you can make the when you are doing all of when you are setting up your cluster, you should make sure that you identify, you specifically mark your data centers and you specifically mark your rack numbers, as well as you should mark the geographical locations. Okay, so that tomorrow when somebody is trying to do certain operations which might require a fast access, they can filter their query and mark that hey, this is what it is. I just want to access only India server, and or when I am doing certain joining, I can say that only join with the data which is in the same rack. Okay. So today we are going really horribly slow. Okay, but never mind. Never mind. These are important aspects. So security is another second topics today which we are going to discuss. So when we talk about security, it comes in various forms. So first one is that by the definition of security, that availability, first aspect of a security is availability, and then second aspect of security is that the integrity, and okay, a- availability, integrity, and there was one more, I've forgotten. So so basically people who want to who are allowed to read a certain data should only be allowed to read that. People people should not be able to deny someone else's access to your servers. Okay. So those are the objective of securing your machines. Let me have a look if you have. Nobody has questions. Okay. So while securing your MongoDB server, there are two parts to it. First is authentication. Okay. Authentication, and second is authorization. So although I've shown you the screen, could anybody tell me what is authentication and what is authorization? Yes. Authentication is giving rights. Authentication is Authorization is giving right. Perfect. Authentication is confirming the identity. That's exactly that. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Authentication means verifying credentials. Yes. Perfect. Perfect. Permissions are, yeah. So as a matter of fact, that um, so authentic. I'll just come back to the actual point what I was trying to do. Okay. So why when we say authentication, we generally say that this person is who he claims to be. Okay. And you will understand the difference between authentication and authorization as two very separate entities. Okay. When I talk about single sign-on. Okay. So authentication means that you provide your credentials either in form of challenge response, which means login password, or or providing some kind of earlier handshake in the form of certificate or Kerberos. And authorization is which role do you belong to, what all can you access, what other things can you execute, delete, update, or whatever, what are the things you are allowed to do. That is part of your authorization. Okay. Which role do you belong to? Who are you is authentication. Great. Great. So I think everybody is clear about. Oman, are you clear about authentication and this? If you say yes, then I'll move on. Great. Now, when we talk about authentication, okay, so authentication is the part which we can delegate. Okay, meaning if you do not want to maintain your own login password, you can delegate it. So, the way, as an example of, I'll give you the example of my product, which was T-Bits, in which people, we had, first of all, we never wrote any authentication system. We never had a login screen, okay, for the first year, okay. But we had our authorization screens. So, how it used to happen is that people used to come to log in into their network, Windows network or Unix network or any other network, and then when they access T-Bits, their all permissions and everything is uh, given by the browser. Okay. And we from the backend we check that this person is what he claims to be. Okay. So there is a gatekeeper who is basically giving tags to the requests which are coming in, saying this request belongs to this user ID. And then our system which checks the authorization, what it does is it checks for what all permission and roles this person is having, and then takes the does the operations that way. So most of the time we delegate the authentication to third party systems. As an example of, in case of MongoDB, we can delegate the authentication to X509 certificate, okay, or Kerberos. So after the we have Kerberos has said that this guy is Sandeep Giri, we do not question it anymore. Okay, we just see that what all permissions the Sandeep Giri has, and then we move on. Okay, so challenge response is standard way where when you try to log into MongoDB, it will ask for login password. But if you have already set up a X509 certificate with the user, then then MongoDB will not be asking the login password to the user. Okay. So these are the ways, authorization ways, and the approaches which we take while securing our servers starts with defense in depth, and then data encryption, trusted environments, then operational practices to reduce risk, and then additional security strategies and vulnerability notifications. Okay. So first we start with defense in depth, as in we start with the database saying this guy is allowed to do the operations. He is this, his role is this, and then on top of it we might start encrypting lot of data which MongoDB does not provide by itself, but there would be I mean your API can do whenever you are inserting data to MongoDB, you can start encrypting it. Third is trusted environment. You set up Kerberos kind of environment which becomes trusted internally, and then you can use systems. Okay. So and then you follow various kinds of practices to reduce risk. Basically, various practices as in decreased total surface area, total exposed surface area of your server. And when we say surface area, it means how many ports are open, what all interfaces are exposed to the world, and is it really required, and have we put a sort of network system which will automatically detect the network traffic and say this is a denial of service and not denial of service attack or other kind of attacks. So we follow those kind of practices while securing our servers. And then additional security strategies would be there. And vulnerability notification is what? So there are forums like securityfocus.org, and there are for other forums also where people keep on posting the vulnerabilities about various software, and that is very very true in case of mongodb as well because it's open source system. And this is the reason why most of the open source softwares are more secure, because people do a lot of vulnerability notification for these systems, and they become their owners or the community quickly responds and fixes those problems and releases a new patch. Okay, so this vulnerability notification has secured a lot of databases. And I used to post vulnerability notification. I have posted for Liferay, and I have posted for indiatimes.com. So I used to post vulnerability notification. I used to find the bugs in these general public solutions and then do it. Okay, and that was half of my role at Deisha. Any component the organization is accepting, I'll used to audit its security and then publish the bugs in it to the world. If you search for Sandeep Giri Liferay, you will find it there. So I used to do it a lot for Deisha and for internal tool as well as the open source tools. Okay. So vulnerability notifications, primary source is first. It used to be security focus. Now it has become some other list. If you find if you say vulnerability notifications, you will find all of that. It's called ALSEC, ALSEC, vulnerability vulnerability database. So NIST.gov is one such place. Vulnerabilities from security focus is another. And then CVE.mitre is another place. So as a practice in an organization who is serious about their tools, what they do is whatever tools they are using in production, their sysadmins or the senior engineers are subscribed to vulnerability notifications so that if any of the problems occur, they are quickly notified. Okay, so people are subscribed to Java, and then people are subscribed to all these kind of vulnerability notifications. And as part of my job earlier, I was supposed to go through almost all of the list every day to see if there are any vulnerabilities. So half of my job was to secure uh, find bugs in other people's software by reading their code, and rest of the time to go through the existing systems. So these are the security concept we talk about. So first we talk about the access control and how is the inter-process authentication going to work, and then we talk about sharded cluster security, then network exposure and security, and all of these aspects. So the MongoDB stores all the users information into systems.users collection. Okay, if once you start creating the users, it will be done there. It will be added there. It will be basically users is just another collections in the systems database. And also each user is always seen in terms of a database. Okay, same user Sandeep can exist at two places separately, and it will identify a separate user altogether. Okay, it will identify a completely separate user altogether in the two databases. We can give different permissions to them, they can have different passwords, and that's how it works. So all the security, everything is per database. Okay. So this is, where is the window? Okay, here. So what is Kerberos and X509? Okay. So Kerberos is a single sign-on policies. Okay. When you log in into a network, you are certified as that you are authenticated person. Now, when you are asking a service, say your leave tracking system inside or XYZ, it does not need to ask you for your login password again, and it doesn't need to even prompt you for the authentication details in any way. So Kerberos gives you a token, a unique token every time you log in, and then it hands it over. It hands it over to the browser. Yeah, it's not really like cookies because it is operating system level, not on the browser level. So basically, your process or your identity is provided through these mechanisms. Okay. Now let's move on. Sharded cluster security. Because MongoS need to access your MongoDs. Okay. So the way first you will have to establish a security between MongoS and all your MongoDs. And to do that, you generally share a certificate. Okay. In most respects, security for Sari cluster is similar to other MongoDB deployments, yeah. Because you will have to secure your MongoDB exactly the way you do a standalone, with the exception that MongoS should be able to connect to this. And as well as MongoS should be able to connect to the config servers. Okay. In sharded clusters, MongoDB provides separate administrative privileges for the sharded clusters and for each shard. And to access a shard cluster as an authenticated user from command line, use the authentication options when connecting to MongoDB. And as we discussed earlier, we can we can decrease decrease the total exposure by turning off the HTTP interface and REST interface, and if you bind the IP to correct one, and port also, if you bind a port to some other number, and that port is protected with the protected with the network firewall. Okay, then you can safely handle that authorized traffic. Okay. And if you basically, if you are opening your MongoDB connection on a very predictable port, say you put it on 80 port, okay, everybody on the World Wide Web is going to attack 80 port. Okay. So that is why you try to limit the network exposure as much as you can. And all of these, as I told, that these can be specified from command line. So when we say minimize overall exposure, or we say that we minimize the overall what do you say, surface area of your server, it means that the multiple aspects, the ports, the network interfaces, the what all services you are going to boot, and what all features functions are you going to provide? Are all of these ports which you are opening, are they protected for denial of service? Are they protected for with the authentication and authorization? So okay, you can basically okay. So similarly for VPN, VPN also provides a really decent level of security to your network. So you could also use a VPN for most of the work. Any questions till now, guys? Bhagwat, Sakti, Samta, Mang, no questions? It could mean two things that see Bhagwat's question is that why do you need to turn off or why is REST disabled by default? Okay. Why do you need to turn off the REST interface? Why can't we why we would need it for the web application? So the in most of the cases the REST interface provided to you by MongoDB is not going to suffice. Okay. Second, REST interface again would require authentication and everything. You'll have to put those kind of checks anyway. The standard way of doing things in case of a little big application is use a driver and connect to the MongoDB the right way from the over the TCP/IP, the way your Mongo client is connecting. Similarly, your code should also connect to MongoDB and then does all sorts of magic for you. Okay, create basically all of the things starting with creating documents till the map reduce. All of these are done through your Java code or through your application onto the database. Yeah. So Sakti, that was the next thing which was coming up. Okay. In which I would like to give you two demonstrations. First demonstration was first demonstration was to add user, create user, assign permissions, and second demonstration is via your second demonstration was using uh, basically second demonstration was for how do you use it with Java. And let me also see if over the next week or somewhere down the line I can get a Node.js setup so that I can demonstrate to Umang also, because Umang was expecting a Node.js part also probably. Isn't that Umang? Okay. So what I'll do is I'll just find a way to set it up and we'll take out like maybe half an hour or just create a video step by step and upload it somewhere for the next week. Okay. So these are the three things left right now. First is to actually show you how to assign permissions and give that hands-on demo. And second is to demonstrate how to access MongoDB from Java. And Node.js was not yet planned, so maybe next week, over the next week, if somebody is interested, they can join me in. And for tomorrow, we'll talk about, first we'll talk about the how to access from Java, and before that we'll talk about how to secure your server. I mean, we'll show you the hands-on experiments on those, and then we'll discuss about your project. If you have a certain project, okay. So the idea of giving a project is that I'm planning to couple two people together, okay, so that you can discuss together and then come up, because what I'm planning is a full-fledged application, okay. What I'm planning is full-fledged application, and this thing will go on for say 15 days from now, from tomorrow. So that is the reason I am planning to do it. And also there are a lot of assignments pending for you. So in these 15 days you will have to finish all of it. Okay. I mean, assignment, at most we can extend a deadline to a few more days. But or maybe next weekend, by next weekend you finish up your assignment and start working on the project. It will be great, because it is very much required to have practical experience. So the project which we are planning to give you is a complete application. So it will be easy if you couple with other person. So there are six people, and out of this there are three groups possible. So if you want, you can form the group, and we can also form 3 by 3 group. Okay, but beyond three it becomes impossible. So I think 2 plus 2 is good. 2 plus 2 plus 2 is good. Okay. And yeah, so I have thought about a project which is basically building a location based Twitter. Okay. If you have better ideas, just write to me, and then I'll see whether it's a good enough project or not. Okay. If you had some plan in mind to do some large project, just drop me an email with the idea. Then I can see whether it's good for the class or not. Because I got couple of more ideas like churning a public database and all that. Okay, but all of that only was very small aspect. Okay, it was more about analytics than the whole database part. Okay. So first, you guys have to finish all your assignment, which is map reduce and everything. Second, you form the teams, and then otherwise I'll pick and choose. Okay. So you form the teams, or I've created a Google Plus group where you can communicate with each other. Okay. I have added all of you. So that is one way. So did you get email? I think nobody checks Google Plus. Okay. So my plan is to give a same project to all three. Okay. 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 I'll talk to Shreya and then see. Okay. And yeah. So if you have any doubts, ping me over the weekdays, no problems. And in case somebody is actually left out and he's thinking that MapReduce or aggregation concepts, they need to go over again. Go through the video once, and then we can have the discussions. Okay, okay. So that's good enough for today. And tomorrow will be most likely hands-on. Tomorrow is the last class, and then over next week I'll just schedule an half an hour or 1 hour class to show the Node.js. And also, after 15 days, we will again, based on your submissions, we may not be a proper class, but interactions will continue. Okay, interactions will continue. Okay, and drop me an email, and that Yahoo, that Google group which we have created will be active forever, and all of this LMS and everything will be active forever, so you can get in touch every anytime. Okay, so it is forever. It's not that the class is getting over, so no more uh, conversation. Okay, so that's pretty much for today. mm, I think let's just finish the course first. Okay, let's finish the course first because it is getting already delayed by a week. I do not want it to delay it anymore. Okay, okay. And for discussions or anywhere you're stuck, drop us an email. I mean, either at Sandeep at no big data or mongodb at no big data. Uh, okay, so okay, you can expect in a answer in couple of hours. Okay. If I find it difficult to write it down, I will schedule a meeting and then we can discuss it. Okay. So feel free to try out things and also get in touch. Okay. Okay. So you guys can carry on your discussion over that forum. And right now this is very private forum. I have not made it public. None of the discussions. But if people want, then I can make it public. Okay. Okay, guys. Thank you very much. And let's meet tomorrow. There is a Google Plus group. I have added you also. Okay. Bye bye. Tomorrow we are having class at the same time. Okay. Bye, Sakti. Bye, Umang. Bye, Samta. Bye, Bhagwat.